Good morning. Today I'm looking at Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 to 16, but focusing really on verse 16, which says, "Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace in time to help in time of need." This is in the book of Hebrews, of course, which is that great book talking about the parallels and the differences between the old covenant and the new covenant. In the old covenant, you could not approach, nobody could approach the place where God dwelled. In the Old Testament, when they were in the wilderness, God gave them the plans for the tabernacle in great detail, and the plans for the temple were given in great detail. And the temple had various courts, and you went through each of the courts, and fewer people were allowed into each subsequent court until you got right into the Holy of Holies, which was divided from the holy place by a very, very tall single curtain. And only one man, the high priest, could enter the Holy of Holies one day every year on the Day of Atonement. And there was much ritual and sacrifice made before he was allowed to go in there. No one else could go in there. There was always need for an intermediary between an ordinary person and God, because you could not approach God because of sin. Sin was dealt with in the Old Testament via numerous sacrifices, blood sacrifices. And the comparison is made in Hebrews that we have, it says in verse 14, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Jesus is now our high priest. We don't need a human priest. Jesus is the high priest. And he has gone in through the heavens to the glorious throne room of God. And Hebrews talks very much about everything here, everything we experience here, being a shadow in comparison to the real that is where God is. And so the tabernacle and the temple were, I was going to say faint, that they were representations of what heaven is like and how the approach to God could be made. And Jesus has gone through that heavens into the presence of God as the great high priest, bearing his blood to offer to God as atonement for all the sin and suffering of this world. And he has gone through the veil. The human representations of the temple and the tabernacle were meant to give us an idea, they're a shadow. I can't think of a better word than a shadow of the real things. And just like, if you remember when Jesus died, the veil, that curtain, that enormously tall curtain in the tabernacle, in the temple, sorry. The tabernacle is long gone by the time the temple under Herod is built. But that curtain, when Jesus died, was torn from top to bottom by no human hand, signifying that the way into God's presence is now open, and we don't have to fear going in. They were afraid when they went in to the Holy of Holies. In fact, the high priest wore pomegranates and bells on the bottom of his robe so that it could be heard if he was still able to move around. And also they had a rope tied to him so that if he stopped moving around, he could be pulled out without anyone entering the Holy of Holies. He could be pulled out and rescued if somehow he'd been struck down because of the sin that he carried, because it was impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away all sin. But these were the rules and regulations showing how difficult it was to get near to God. And some churches have adopted, have continued this idea that we all need an intermediary between us and God. And I think it is true that people who've never known God do need someone to introduce them to God, bring them to God, show them how to find God and make that first contact and start that relationship with God through Jesus. But once that relationship is established and the person is part of God's family, born of the Spirit of God, there is then no need for a priest to offer sacrifices to God or to be the only person who could bless. The New Testament teaches the opposite, teaches in fact that all of us are priests. We are a kingdom of priests. That's what Peter teaches. That there's no longer the intermediary between us and God is Jesus, who is seated at the right hand of the Father, pleading for us. So this verse here says, "Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace." And the reason is, since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we have not a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then, with confidence, draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. The way is open, dear friend. The way is open to the throne of grace, to approach God. And Jesus himself said, when you pray, say, Our Father. He joins himself with us. God is his Father. God is our Father when we have faith in Jesus. And we approach him as a Father, not as the God of gods, the eternal God, the unreachable, untouchable being who is so far above us we can't even hope to look at his feet and not be struck down. That's not the approach. No, he's our dad. He's our dad. And we can, just as royal children in our country can approach the King without fear, we can approach the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the God of gods. We can approach God through Jesus, his Son, and know we have a warm welcome. God bless you. That's Hebrews 4:14-16. Have a great day. Bye-bye.